Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 11th episode of the Songs of Healing podcast with Ian Taylor, a podcast where we explore the healing elements of song and songwriting and how they are used to heal and process life experiences. I am your host, Ian Taylor, singer-songwriter, coach, and humble student of life, offering my perspectives, wisdom, heartfelt honesty, and story. All right, so the updates of music for me is a show this Saturday on May the 11th at the Mint, my single release show for The Great Unknown, so that should be fun. And then on the 18th, I have a showcase at the Unurban coffee shop with some friends. That'll be fun. And then I'm releasing this single on May 28th, Old Sadness, the third single from this album I've recorded with Plaid Dog Recordings. So that's going to be a good release. It's a beautiful song I wrote during the pandemic. There's like cellos and violins in it. It's a pretty epic song. So that'll be fun. Look out for these things. I'll put links in the description of this podcast. So this is episode 11 of the Songs of Healing podcast. And if you haven't been listening so far, I've been kind of telling a story. There's like an arc, a story arc that I've been going through since 2011 and what has transpired in my life and how my music releases have been coinciding with life experiences. It kind of makes sense. I mean, this podcast is called Songs of Healing. It's about how one or an artist or even someone who's not a musician or an artist can use songs and songwriting as a tool for their own healing process. And it's kind of the whole essence of this podcast, actually. But anyways, now we are on to this album I released after that whole heartbreak album. This album I released it in 2017. The last album was 2016. And this album is called Surrender and Sway, Look into a New Day. Gosh, I think that's what it's called. I'm just so used to calling it Surrender and Sway. But anyways. So this album, I was actually kind of looking at it before recording this and kind of considering which songs I'd want to be doing. And it seems like the main themes of this album, kind of riding off of this whole deep, cathartic, grief-inducing experience with chasing this girl around for a couple weeks and becoming deeply attached to her, and then coming to the realization that I was kind of in this codependent love trance, just following her around. Coming to the realization that I needed to part ways with her, that I needed to break the trance. I needed to come back into the reality of my life and the reality of my goals and what I want in my life, in partnership and in career, in music. And how me following her was not, it was not that. It was not me being on my goals. And at the same time, in a strange way, it's kind of interesting looking back to this stuff. And I always kind of had a feeling about this. it is that whole experience was a part of my life goals and purpose, because my purpose in life, or what I've always believed my purpose is to be this deep diver that is fully, that isn't fully inhabiting my healing journey, that is fully inhabiting my emotional experience with life, and using the hardships that bring up the emotions and transmuting it into works of art, into music, into songs. So, and just kind of like expressing my healing journey through songs, and being honest about the authentic states that I get into within, because I have always been a deep feeler. Yeah. So, in a way, following her around, going through this deep grief process, cathartic process, was actually, and all the lessons and all the learnings that I extracted from that experience actually was a part of me being on purpose, even though one could judge it as being distracted, as being kind of led astray from the things that I'm wanting to do in my life. And honestly, I've struggled with those judgments on myself, for sure. I've always struggled with that. But there's some weird magic, I think, in life and the paths that we walk. And for me, everything that I go through, internally and externally, I am a strong believer of there being meaning behind it all, or making meaning of it. I think I'm remembering this Viktor Frankl quote from, I can't remember what the book is, but he wrote a book about his experience with the Holocaust, and I think the book is called Men's Search for Meaning, and how even through the most horrific things in life, not like my experience was anything close to what anybody experienced in the Holocaust, but how what keeps one going in general is extracting meaning from what goes on for them in life, whether it be atrocious things or deeply painful personal things, emotional things, breakups, dealing with death, dealing with family and hardships with family, or trauma within a family. So I am one that can extract meaning from all that I've gone through, especially as it applies to my own healing journey, my own healing process. So anyways, Surrender and Sway was kind of coming off of this whole experience with this girl. And the themes in this album, I've noticed, is depression, kind of a accepting of depression, and a choice to go into it, a choice to go into hardship, mixed with like inner self-advocacy around maybe being someone that is more deep, that is more deeply feeling. And also there's a sense of escapism in this album too, having more to do with I think at the time I was really like, I was looking towards moving on from this whole experience. And so a lot of the expressions in this album was like accepting my depression, accepting the hardships that I go through, that I always have struggled with around women and around community, around relationships. And also looking forward, looking to move into the next thing. And looking back in retrospect now, and also come the next album, jumping forward just a little bit, I realized that I think it was escapism in Surrender and Sway. There was something where I'm like, I don't want to go through this anymore. I want to move on as quick as I can, as quick as possible, because this is painful. And I don't want to just like squander my life away into this pain. So yeah, there is escapism in it, but also it's like a really kind of beautiful escapism. You know, there's a lot of dreaminess in that escapism, in that. And at the time, I think I had always had inklings of wanting to travel more around the world, cross country or across seas. And I think at the time I was just feeling that energy more too. It was just kind of like, yeah. But anyways, this song that I'm going to be focusing on is called The Child is Broken. And this is definitely this song more represents that theme that I was talking about around depression, around accepting depression, around realizing my own trauma, or that is stimulated in relationships with women. And and the child is broken was kind of like me just claiming like there's a child inside of me that has always felt completely broken. And I'm working to accept that, and that's what this song really is expressing. It's also, I remember when I wrote this song, it felt really risky to share it because it just felt very, I kind of grew up in a very spiritual, new age, not very, but that was the main disposition towards life was of a spiritual perspective for sure, and of acting in a way that is positive and uplifting. At least I took that on, I remember, I think from the influences of my mother and my sister. I took on a perspective of I need to hold a deep awareness, a deep consciousness, and kind of like a higher position of myself in life. Now I can't say whether they were actually like the influences of my mom or my sister. I can't say whether they were actually requiring this of me. I think there were parts of me that did feel like that, but might have misunderstood it. Anyways, I'll get deeper into it, but I will share the song with you now. I hope you guys enjoy it. On the shore of your life, this mysterious ocean lies before your eyes. And as you move through time, there'll be a dark presence that lives inside. Keep you locked in the basement, in your childhood basement was born your ugly side. Just know that it'll always be there. There's your hurt child there. Don't push him aside. The child is broken, it is best to not make it wrong. Let the heart break and become the most beautiful song. The child will find their own true way through life. The child is broken, raise your glasses up to the sky, to the sky, to the sky. And as you sleep at night, what do your dreams tell you? What have you locked inside? Darkness creeps outside. It's been so long since it's seen the light. You've kept it all in the basement, in your childhood basement, where the ugly song. The child will find their own true way through life. The child is broken, raise your glasses up to the sky, to the sky. So I remember at this time in my life, when I wrote this song, I had come to this point where I left that long-term relationship, and in my 20s, it was a very significant relationship. I mention it a lot in this podcast. And, I was just really questioning my relationships with women and with family in general. And it was like, I remember it was the first time in my life, and I was seeing coaches, so I was doing a lot of work on myself, and I was doing, been doing a lot of work with men's groups and with these men's organizations, and I remember at this time just realizing how I kind of lived for the attention, the approval, the nurturance of women in my life. And in a way where I would put my authentic self aside, maybe not even my authentic self, but my authentic emotions aside. And in all honesty, I had a lot of anger towards my family, towards the women in my life that was coming up at that time, because, coming from an alcoholic family where my father was, I have talked about him before. He was doing his best with the traumatic childhood that he came from. So I'm not interested in talking trash about my family members in this podcast. And at the same time, I was deeply affected by the people around me in my life. And of course, there's been a lot of work for me in getting over anger and bitterness, and coming to understanding and acceptance of all of us doing the best we could. But through my father just kind of struggling with his own darkness, and then the way he would cope with it when I was really young, I think scared everybody around him. And my mother kind of took on this role as, I think, being a protector in that dynamic. And because as a child, I didn't know how to deal with being around someone with those kinds of emotions, whether it be anger, rage, or just belligerence. I just naturally gravitated towards the safest person, or attached to the safest person or people around me. And so therefore I took on the perspectives growing up of my mother, and as I got older, the presence of my father, he just became a bit more obscure to me, especially after the divorce when I was a teenager, 14. And so for me, there was just always a great distance I felt with my father, but I felt more of a closeness with my mother, and also with my older sister, the oldest sibling. And so at this time in my life, when I wrote this song, when I was writing this album, and I was doing all this work in men's work, and I had just gone through this very trying experience of falling in love with this young Israeli girl that I was following around, and also a year or two prior to that, leaving this 8-year relationship, more coming to the realization that I just needed to find who I was outside of this relationship, outside of my relationship to women in general. I was finding that I needed to take space, from family members, and I was realizing also through this work in men's groups that I took on the perspectives of my mother and the women around me about my father. And so I confess, was not as graceful. I took space in not a very graceful way with my mom and my sister. And there's parts of me that I've always regretted that. And I also didn't really know what else to do at that time. And I just needed to have boundaries and to not interact for a bit, and kind of explored my relationship with my father a bit more at that time. But this song, the reason why I bring all this up is because this song, there was something, the part that felt really risky about this song was kind of me confessing to my brokenness, confessing to me always feeling broken, and how I have a darkness inside of me. I've always felt that there's a darkness inside of me. And for some reason, in my relationships with my mom and my sister, I interpreted them as not accepting my darkness. Therefore, I should always put my darkness aside for the love of women, for the love of a woman. Like I should always be very nice and kind to them in order to keep that love going, that connection of love. I mean, with complex trauma, with, neglect, what generally comes out of someone being brought up in that family system of feeling neglect, being emotionally neglected, not getting the things that we need when we're young, what tends to happen is we tend to overperform, because when we're performing and we're being a good person, we're being a good boy or a good girl, and we're getting attention from performing in that way, then we will adapt behaviors to perform and to perform and to perform as we go out life, thinking that performing equates to love, equates to nurturing, equates to our needs finally being met through that we're emotionally neglected or that we're neglected. So I understand that now through all the work and all the searching I've done in myself. And I understand that at this time, I was kind of in this place where I was just needing to have space to really consider these relationships in my life, and just, write songs about my trauma, about the ways that I feel like I've locked certain things in the basement. My darkness, my wounded child, the part of me that I thought was ugly, that I maybe took on a perspective of it being ugly, my anger being ugly, my aggression being ugly, but it was just me. Anything that was like that for me, expression of aggression, was just a deep unmet need. Just really like wanting to be loved in every aspect of myself, whether I be angry or whether I be nice and loving.
On the shore of your life, this mysterious ocean lies before your eyes.
On the shore of your life, this mysterious ocean lies before your eyes. And as you move through time, there will be a dark presence that lives inside, that can keep you locked in the basement, in your childhood basement. Was born your ugly side. Just know that it'll always be there. There's your hurt child there. Don't push him aside. And yeah, it's just me advocating coming to this place where I'm accepting my brokenness. I'm accepting that there's feelings inside of myself. There is hurt inside of myself that I've probably locked away, that I've denied or avoided throughout my life up until this point, that I saw as ugly, that I thought others saw as ugly too. So therefore, I need to lock it away.
The child is broken, it is best to not make it wrong. Let the heart break and become the most beautiful song.
The child is broken, it is best to not make it wrong. Let the heart break and become the most beautiful song. The child will find their own true way through life. The child is broken, raise your glasses up to the sky. So really, that last verse, raise your glasses up to the sky, I remember having this image of wouldn't it be really beautiful if you were a part of a family system or part of a family that honored your brokenness and actually kind of raise their glasses to it at the dinner table or something like that, as being broken is a beautiful thing and it's a beautiful aspect of this life, and this is also where a lot of your gifts come from. And I'm actually reminded of the ending of that movie Pan's Labyrinth, the Guillermo del Toro movie, and I remember watching that movie with a friend of mine, and the end of that movie is a very beautiful ending because she doesn't complete the task throughout the whole movie. I need to actually watch this movie again because it's really beautiful. She ends up failing in the end, but regardless of her failing, she's still accepted into the magic kingdom, into the fairy world, and she's still revered as a queen or a princess. And so there's something, then that movie has a lot to do with trauma too. But that image of raising your glass to someone who is not the winner, who is failing and has failed at life, or at whatever the expectations or the laws of success are in this life, whatever that may be. But raising your glass and celebrating even someone who is failing at life. To me, that was always just so beautiful, and personally, directly was connected to that image. That vision was directly connected to this aspect of me that just wanted to be loved and to be honored and to be seen as great, even if I'm not doing great things, you know, even if I'm still presented as broken. I mean, honestly, it's like, isn't that what a beautiful vision of society is? I mean, if we could still honor the broken ones, you know, and just the fact that they are living, and just the fact that they are part of this planet, and how that is something to be celebrated, that they're here, you know? And it's like, just experiencing that ultimate compassion of, I honor you, I respect you, and I raise my glass to you just for living, and just for you being you, and you being human in your flaws and your triumphs at the same time. It's like, and also like the deep compassion of, you don't need to win in order to get love. And for me, as coming from neglect, it was all about, I need to act a certain way, and because that's the only way I'm going to be loved by women. That kind of ultimate love that I really want from the world around me, from the women around me, from my friends, you know, it's all of it.
Up to the sky, to the sky, to the sky. And as you sleep at night,
and as you sleep at night, what do your dreams tell you? What have you locked inside? When the darkness creeps outside, it's been so long since it's seen the light. You've kept it locked in the basement, in your childhood basement, where the ugly hides. Just know that it's always there, and it's always scared. Yeah, again, it's just, you know, I think that my experience has been that our emotional repression, or the unexpressed emotions left over from traumatic experiences in life, that if we are not directly expressing them, getting over them, shaking it off like maybe a duck would when they fight each other in a pond, and they shake away the tension of the conflict. If we're not doing that with our own emotional experiences and our own triggers, our own stimulations, our own hurts and upsets, if we're not doing that because we are brought up in a family that does not know how to deal with emotions, that let alone doesn't know how to be present to their children, and give the adequate attention that a child needs, then I think those repressed emotions will they will exist in the subconscious. They will be backlogged in the subconscious, and they'll speak to us in our dreams, and they'll start to come up in our dreams. This has been my experience in life. I've had many dreams that have been very cathartic feeling, intense, like there's a lot of repressed energy in them, and at the time not understanding it because they're still existing in my subconscious. So I think that our trauma speaks to us in our dreams. Actually, it's not even that I think, I know it does. And there's something very beautiful about the acceptance of our darkness and letting it come out into the light. And that's really what this song is also. It's very much representing. You've kept your darkness locked in the basement, in your childhood basement being the kind of the deep subterranean place that originates or was created in our childhood, where, all of those things inside, those emotions got confused and we started calling ugly because we didn't want to express them because all we want is love, And if we're equating, we have to perform and be very nice in order to get love, then we're going to shun our own emotional intensity and call it ugly. And we'll lock it in the basement until it starts coming at us in our dream space. Start having nightmares. So, and just, this song is kind of like, it's me talking about like, as you're going about life, there will be a darkness inside. And we have to accept that. We have to love that darkness. We have to understand that most people don't come out of childhood completely unscathed. And maybe I'm hyper pessimistic with that statement, but I do believe that, actually. I do believe that a lot of us are traumatized, and there's still a lot of denial in it, for sure. Rationale, to not actually get at our trauma and express those places that scare the shit out of us. So, and I also think that there's an overemphasis on dwelling in our trauma too, or kind of using the logic of trauma as a way of avoiding responsibility too. So, it's a rich subject, honestly.
Song. The child will find their own true way through life. The child is broken, raise your glasses up to the sky. To the sky.
I hope you all enjoyed this song, The Child is Broken, and you got something out of my story and sharing myself and where this song came from, what I was going through at the time in my life. And I just hope you all have a really beautiful week and so much light to you, so much light to the little ones inside that may feel ugly, that may feel unacknowledged, and that just really wants some love. And may you glean some love from this podcast and from my message here. I hope you all have a beautiful week, and I'll catch you next time.